Emily Taylor had lived in her parents' modest two-story home in Cedar Grove, Ohio, for over 5 years. After college, she moved back in to save money and help her mom, Mary, with bills after her father passed away. It wasn't glamorous, but it was home. Emily paid $800 a month for her room. Her mother insisted on rent, and Emily, being the responsible daughter, never questioned it. She also helped with groceries, utilities, and the occasional car repair. She didn't complain. She couldn't. At 28, Emily was a full-time nurse at the local hospital. Her shifts were long, often emotionally draining, but she found meaning in her work. Every morning, she'd make her own coffee, slip on her scrubs, kiss her mom goodbye, and drive to work hoping that someday soon she could afford her own apartment. That hope dimmed every time she checked the rental prices in town. Then came the day everything changed. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Emily came home to find her brother, Brad, standing in the kitchen with his wife Kelly and their 2 hyper kids running through the living room. Brad was smiling like he just won the lottery. "Guess what?" he beamed. "We're moving in, for a while. Things have been rough. You know how it is." Emily stood frozen, her hands still on the doorknob. She hadn't heard a word about this. No heads up from Mom. No text. Nothing. Mary appeared from the hallway, looking excited. "Isn't it wonderful? Brad and his family are staying here until they get back on their feet." Emily glanced at her mother. "Where are they going to sleep?" "Oh, don't worry, honey. They'll be in the guest room. And we'll rearrange some space in the living room for the kids." Emily blinked. "The guest room? That's where I keep all the medical supplies and extra storage." But she bit her tongue. The last thing she wanted was to start a scene in front of Brad and his kids. She waited until later that night, after everyone had gone to bed. She and her mother sat alone in the kitchen. Emily spoke quietly, trying to stay calm. "You didn't tell me they were moving in." Mary sipped her tea. "I didn't want to stress you out. It's just temporary. You said that the last time Brad needed help. He stayed for 9 months. Well, he's your brother." Emily leaned forward. "And I've been paying rent. I help out. I work full-time. Brad doesn't have a job." Mary's expression shifted. "Well, now that there's more people here, expenses will go up. I think it's only fair you start paying $1,500 instead of $800. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. "You're charging me more because they're freeloading off of you?" "They're not freeloading," her mom snapped. "They're family. And they're going through a rough time. So am I." Silence filled the kitchen. Emily didn't argue further. She knew nothing she said would change her mom's mind. Brad had always been the favorite. He could do no wrong. Emily had always been the dependable one, the one who never needed rescuing, so she never got it. That night, lying in bed, Emily stared at the ceiling and made a decision. It was time. She grabbed her phone and opened the apartment rental site again. She'd been browsing listings for months but always hesitated. Now, there was no room for doubt. She needed her own space, not just physically, but emotionally. She was done carrying the weight of everyone else's choices. Within 2 days, she found a small 1-bedroom apartment 10 minutes from the hospital. The rent wasn't cheap, but she could make it work. It was clean, quiet, and best of all, hers. But she told no one. Not yet. Instead, she started quietly boxing her belongings in the evenings, taking out only what she needed for the night. When asked, she claimed she was reorganizing. Brad didn't notice. Her mom was too busy babysitting the grandkids and cooking meals for 5 adults. Emily rented a moving van for a Saturday morning when everyone would be out at the park. In 3 hours, everything she owned was packed, moved, and unpacked at her new place. At 4 p.m., she finally texted her mother. "Hey Mom, I found my own place. Wishing you all the best with Brad and the crew. Enjoy the slackers." No response. Not for an hour. Then just one word. "Seriously?" Emily didn't reply. She sat on her new couch, surrounded by silence, sipping her own coffee in her own cup. And for the first time in years, she felt free. The silence after Emily's move was brief. By Monday morning, her phone buzzed with calls from her mother, 3 missed ones before noon, and a flurry of texts that ranged from guilt-tripping to passive-aggressive jabs. "Mom, I can't believe you just left like that. Mom, you could have talked to me. Mom, Brad is struggling. You know that. Mom, you've always been so dramatic." Emily read them all in her new kitchen, leaning against the counter with a coffee mug warming her hands. The place still smelled like fresh paint and dust. A small box of books sat unopened near the window. She didn't have a dining table yet, just a folding chair and a tray table from Walmart, but it felt like a palace compared to the chaos she'd left behind. She didn't respond to the texts. That evening, she lit a candle, curled up on the couch, and watched her favorite hospital drama, ironic, given her job, but comforting in its own way. Just as the lead character made a dramatic diagnosis, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Brad. "Brad, way to bail, Em. Brad, Mom's been crying all day. Brad, guess you're too good for family now." Emily sighed, locked the screen, and tossed the phone on the couch. She hadn't expected a thank you, but the entitlement still burned. Brad hadn't paid a cent to live at home. He didn't cook. He didn't clean. And now, with her gone, he and his family were sucking up all of Mary's time, money, and energy. Emily didn't relish the image of her mother stressed and overwhelmed, but she also refused to be the solution anymore. 3 days later, Emily ran into her mother at the grocery store. Mary was at the checkout, holding a half-empty cart of groceries and arguing with the cashier about a coupon that had expired. Emily hesitated, then approached casually with a nod. "Hey," she said. Mary looked up, startled. Her face tightened. "I didn't expect to see you," she said flatly. "I still eat food," Emily replied with a small smile. Mary didn't return it. They stood awkwardly for a moment before Mary added, "Brad lost a job interview this week. Kinda bad timing for you to leave." Emily crossed her arms. "You mean bad timing for you? I mean we could have used the help." "I was the help," Emily said, her voice calm but firm. "And when I needed you to have my back, you raised my rent to make up for Brad's lack of responsibility." Mary's eyes narrowed. "That's not fair." "No," Emily said, her voice rising slightly. "What's not fair is that I gave everything for 5 years, money, time, peace, and you never saw it. But the moment Brad shows up with his circus, you act like I owe more." The cashier awkwardly continued scanning groceries as if she were invisible. Mary didn't respond. Her jaw tightened. Emily handed her a few coupons from her own wallet without a word, turned, and walked away. Later that week, Emily came home from a long hospital shift to find a handwritten letter stuck in her mailbox. It was from Mary. "Emily, I don't know when things got so tense between us, but I didn't raise you to be so cold. Your brother is struggling. He's made mistakes, but he's still my son. And you, well, you've always been strong. That's why I counted on you so much. Maybe I leaned on you too hard. Maybe I took advantage. I thought you could handle it. I never meant to hurt you. But I still think families should help each other, even when it's inconvenient. Mom." Emily read it twice. She folded it neatly, placed it in a drawer, and sat down at her small kitchen table. She wasn't cold. She wasn't heartless. She was tired. Tired of being expected to carry everyone while no one carried her. Her new apartment wasn't just walls and floors. It was a boundary. And for the first time in her life, she was protecting it. The silence between Emily and her family stretched into weeks. There were no more texts, no phone calls. Even holidays passed with little more than a group message from Mary saying, "Happy Thanksgiving," with a generic turkey gif. Emily responded politely, but distantly. She didn't miss the tension, the chaos, the constant pressure to be the adult in a house full of grown children. She missed the idea of home, but not the reality it had become. Life in her apartment wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She painted the walls a soft teal, bought herself a second-hand bookshelf, and adopted a cat from the shelter, a grumpy tabby named Oscar who liked to sleep on her clean laundry. She worked her shifts at the hospital, came home tired but peaceful, and slowly rebuilt her emotional balance. One evening, as she was returning from work, she saw a familiar car parked outside her building. Her mother's. Emily sighed, shifted her bag onto her shoulder, and walked inside without acknowledging it. She made it to the third floor, unlocked her door, and stepped inside to find Mary sitting on the hallway floor outside her apartment. "Mom?" Mary looked up. Her eyes were puffy, her hair disheveled. "I didn't know where else to go," she said quietly. Emily hesitated, then stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come in." Mary entered slowly, looking around the small but cozy space. She took in the books, the plants, the simple decor. Her eyes lingered on the photo of Emily and their late father on the counter. "It's nice," she said. "Peaceful." "That's the idea," Emily said, offering her mother a cup of tea. They sat on the couch, Oscar hopping up between them and curling into a ball. Mary exhaled deeply. "Things at home are bad. Brad hasn't worked in over 2 months. Kelly's talking about going back to her mom's. The kids are constantly fighting. The house is falling apart. And I can't keep up with it all." Emily didn't speak. "I thought I was doing the right thing," Mary continued. "Helping my son. Keeping the family together. But I made it worse. And I pushed you away in the process." Emily looked down at her mug. "I didn't leave because I stopped caring, Mom. I left because no one cared about me." Mary nodded slowly, her eyes glossy. "I see that now. I always thought you'd be okay no matter what. Brad needed more help, so I gave it. I didn't realize I was burning you out in the process." Silence settled over them again. Then Mary added, "I didn't come here to ask for money. Or help. I needed to say I'm sorry." Emily blinked. She hadn't expected that. Mary looked around the apartment again. "You've built a beautiful life here. You did it all on your own." Emily's throat tightened. She nodded. Then, for the first time in years, they talked, not about rent, or chores, or family drama, but about books, patience, even Oscar's strange obsession with shoelaces. It wasn't a dramatic reunion. No tears. No hugs. Just quiet understanding. When Mary stood to leave, she paused at the door. "You're welcome at home any time," she said softly. "But I also understand if you never come back." Emily smiled faintly. "Thanks, Mom." After the door closed, Emily stood for a long moment in the silence. Not the lonely kind, but the peaceful kind. Oscar meowed from the couch, unimpressed by all the emotion in the room. Emily laughed quietly, picked him up, and whispered, "I think we'll stay right here." Weeks passed after Mary's visit. Emily didn't return to the house she'd once called home, and she didn't expect an invitation back. But something had shifted. There was no longer anger in her chest when she thought about her family. Just clarity. She'd done the right thing. One Sunday morning, as she sipped her coffee on the balcony, her phone buzzed with a message from Kelly. "Kelly, we moved out." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Kelly, Brad's staying with a friend. I took the kids back to my mom's. Things fell apart fast after you left." No apology. No gratitude. Just facts. Typical Kelly. That same afternoon, Mary called. Her voice was tired but calm. "Brad's out. He finally got a part-time job, nothing stable, but it's something. The house is quiet. Too quiet, honestly." "I remember that quiet," Emily said with a smile. "It's not so bad once you get used to it." "I started sleeping again," Mary admitted. "Turns out chaos takes a toll." Emily let out a soft laugh. "Now you know how I felt." Mary hesitated. "I've been thinking about what you said. About fairness. I realize now, I wasn't being fair to you. I just assumed your strength meant you could carry more. That's not fair to anyone." Emily nodded, though her mother couldn't see it. "You raised me to be independent," Emily said. "And when I finally chose myself, it felt like betrayal. But it wasn't. It was survival." There was silence on the line for a moment. Then Mary said something unexpected. "I refinanced the house. I'm going to be okay." Emily smiled. Her mother had always been stubborn, but she was also capable, when she stopped trying to fix everyone else. That evening, Emily pulled out an old photo album and flipped through the pages. Birthdays, family trips, snapshots of a different time. A time before things got complicated. Before she became the fallback for everyone else's mess. She didn't regret leaving. But she also didn't regret loving them. Sometimes, love looked like staying. Sometimes, it looked like walking away. And sometimes, the fairest thing you could do, for everyone, was choosing peace over loyalty. Emily placed the album back on the shelf and turned out the light. She climbed into bed, Oscar hopping up beside her. She was done paying for everyone else's life. Now, she was finally living her own.